Welcome. I'm Riley Karsh.
I'm Tova Kopan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast. I am Riley, and I'm here with...
I'm Tova.
And we are so very, very excited to have you with us today. It's interview day, and everyone knows, I'm sure, that I get very excited about interview day, and I yell about it and cheer and rah-rah because I love interview day, and I love talking to people about their experiences.
I get rah-rah.
I get rah-rah. That's as cheery as I get. Listen, if you grew up with me, you know that like I am not a cheerleader, but I am a cheerleader for other people. And I do it in my own special way. We're all unique. We're all special flowers. Nice. It's fine. So it's interview day, and we have an amazing guest to talk to you about. Just to backtrack for a second, we are in season 7, as everyone knows. We are embracing our power. It's like the perfect time of year for that. We're closing out 2022. We're in, when you're listening to this, it may be November. I don't know. We're not sure yet. But as we're recording it, it's October. It's a very I feel maybe because I'm a Sagittarius, we're almost to like my season. It's a year. It's the kind of time of year where we are getting that sort of embracing of our power. Tova talks about it as a witchy season. I don't know. I'm finally not sweating. Like that always feels pretty powerful to me. If you live in an area that has seasons, there's so many different ways in which this is a good time to start talking about this particular topic. And I also think it's a fantastic time to talk to other people about how they go about embracing their power. Because I can tell you my personal story all day long, but it may not resonate with you. And that's okay. Like everybody has different ways of approaching these very same topics. So, but before we get into all of that, I will, as I always do, say hello to my nearest and dearest co-host, my fantastical, wonderful rainbow unicorn friend. I don't know. I'm still working on different adjectives. How are you today, Tova? What's happening?
I'm good. Yeah, I am. It is full on fall here. It is definitely full on fall by the time you're listening to it, but it's even full on fall when we're recording it. And it does harken some witchiness to me, but like to me, maybe because of the books I like to read this time of year that focus on witches. I love these books because they're all about, like you said, embracing our power and embracing our power as women and embracing our power as a sisterhood. And I even just the other day, I think it was yesterday, I sent you a picture of like my favorite Halloween decoration in our town, which is these like 3 black witches, not creepy. You can't see like faces and not in a creepy way. And they're like holding hands and like, they are my favorite seasonal decoration because that's what this is all about, right? It's like women coming together, holding hands, embracing our power. And so I'm excited to be here. It has been a weird time the last 2 months. And so I'm hoping by the time you listen to it, I'm definitely not still weird, but I feel like while we're recording that, I'm kind of getting over the hump, which I'm pretty excited about.
I don't know. I'm going to stay weird. I'm just letting everyone know.
I'm okay if I'm weird. I just don't want like everything around me to just be like, really? Again? Another thing?
Yeah, I'm teasing you. But yes, naturally, we would like for those things to fade away and a little sense of normalcy return.
It's okay for things to be boring. I'm a Cancer. I like flourish in the boring.
Yeah.
Please be boring. But now I get to have my fun on our interview day with the rah-rahing. I am so excited to introduce all of you to our guest. I was actually on her podcast, so this is like so much fun. So welcome, Megan. I'm going to do a little spiel so we know about Megan before we get started. So we are joined by Megan Whiteside, who is a trial attorney in Maryland and DC. She focuses her litigation practice on representing victims and families of those who have suffered abuse and neglect in nursing homes. And she does not take this lightly at all. And I think many of us who's now my mom listens, so she's nowhere near being in a nursing home, but she's nearer than like my son. So I think those of us who can see this in our future know how important this is. And Megan sees her role as both a guide to her clients with compassion, and then also to protect their rights. But that is not all she does. She is also a mom, national speaker, child advocacy professor, and a podcast host. She speaks on trial advocacy. She speaks on issues facing women in the legal profession. And she really taps into those roles as teacher, speaker, mom, advocate to build connections with other women. And that's really, if I want to put words sort of in her mouth, I think where the podcast has come from. Her podcast is called Mom, Life, and Law. It's an interview podcast. I highly recommend it. And she uses that as well as CLE seminars and leadership summits and other events to really foster a connection between women, especially lawyer moms, but really women across the board, so they can work together to advance their careers. So we are very, very excited to have Megan join us. And I do want to add that I am now surrounded by two women who love their coffee. So I feel like that is a connection that they have. But welcome, Megan. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Tova. Thank you, Riley. I'm so excited to be here in the presence of women who own their power and are helping other women. I love the energy of your podcast, and I'm so honored to be able to be a guest.
Well, we are super, super excited. I say this like I have got to find a better superlative. We are very happy to have you with us and to be able to talk to you about kind of your life journey and how you have grown into the life that you have now. And I say it that way very specifically because no one just sort of arrives where they are, right? Like, well, I mean, maybe people do, but generally speaking, we go through things in our lives that get us to where we are today. And so we're going to start off just diving right into the questions, which is what we usually do. We're not really like a build up with softballs type podcast. So we want to know if you remember the first time in your life when you really felt powerful and what that was like for you.
Absolutely. So it was the birth of my first son. And there are certain memories that you have where you actually can physically embody them. That moment when the nurses placed my baby on my chest, and it was both, I call it an ampersand moment in my life. There's a before and there's an after. And I will never be the same person that I was before. And I think that's a great thing when you talk about that, like the growth and the change and how your experiences shape you. I am a totally different person, and I'm so happy with the person that I am, but I can feel the weight of that baby on my chest. And it was a moment where I thought, I just did that. I have never felt more powerful and amazing and proud of what I just did. And it also was a moment that I can now say in retrospect where I was scared out of my mind. And I don't think that's unusual for moms. So their first baby going, oh my goodness. But it was sort of the weight of that little baby was also sort of the weight of the expectations of everything I had to do going forward. And I will say that moment both scared me and empowered me to be the best version of myself, both for my child, but now I can say for myself, and letting go and learning how to let go of my own expectations of myself, society's expectations of myself, my own family members' expectations of me. And so if I really go back, that's like a pivotal moment for me, and sort of what I've been able to do as a mom, as a person, as a lawyer, as a partner and spouse. That was the start of a really, really exciting journey that I'm still on. It's a learning process, right? You never arrive, but that's a big moment.
Yeah, it's definitely a forever process. It's one of the reasons I personally think moms are, and women in general, but moms in particular are so well positioned to be in leadership positions, right? Because there is that for most of us, I think that sort of, I like the way you describe it, that ampersand moment of like, oh, there was the before and then there was the after. And whether it is that you want to become a hardier version of yourself for your child or for yourself, it is, you are sort of thrust into that position of, oh, okay, well, I am actually going to suddenly have this child in my life, and therefore I will become what I need to become in order to make this child's life the best life it can be. And I, and it doesn't work out exactly how you plan it, right? But it happens. And so I had a very similar experience. And I know, having worked with a lot of moms, that they, this is a routinely reported experience. I also think it is the weakest I've ever felt. It has been being a mom. But what for you? What makes you feel, on the flip side? What makes you feel the weakest? What so that's the most powerful. What makes you feel the weakest?
I I don't know that it's an experience I still have, but there were several moments as a young woman associate in a very male dominated field. So not only am I a litigator, but I have spent probably 2/3 of my legal career doing either medical malpractice or nursing home abuse and neglect. And that is a very male dominated. Litigation is somewhat male dominated, but that niche it's unusual for you to be in a deposition or trial with all women advocates. In fact, I've never been in a trial with all women advocates. I have been in some depositions where I'm on one side and my opposing counsel is a woman attorney also. But there were some moments early in practice where I can now look back and say I doubted myself. I was gaslit. I allowed that criticism that was spewed my way because of the fact that I was a woman really get to me. And I think that part of the motivation for me in my podcast, but also in mentoring that I do in my practice, is to help to lift up younger women and women my age and older, right? We have to band together in this profession, because it is so easy to let that outside noise and what still happens, unfortunately, in our profession really make you doubt yourself, feel weak. And I think I've gotten to a point now where it's like I can hear it, I can recognize it, and go, no, thank you, I'm not accepting that, and I go on with my work, knowing that I will do a good job, and that's just their opinion. But there were some moments in early practice that were really, really tough.
So you sort of described what you do, but when you do have these feelings of vulnerability, because you're saying now, like, you didn't even know that you didn't know that they were like what they were then, right? You kind of felt maybe put more on yourself than you should have, rather than the world around you. But when you do have these feelings of vulnerability, whether they are what you're describing in practice or just in life in general, you're definitely someone who takes risks and is like, I'm going to try this new thing. um, what do you do to help either manage them or sort of embrace those feelings and use them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it kind of goes back to my journey as a mom. And Riley, I agree with you that like parenting skills or leadership skills. And so for me, motherhood was the biggest test and opportunity of personal development, right? Because it tapped into I was faced with some of my biggest insecurities, my biggest vulnerabilities, the things I liked least of myself somehow were amplified in parenthood, especially juxtaposed with the practice of law. And so for me, it's really been thought work. And I know this is going to sound woo woo for anybody who hasn't never had a life coach. And I made fun of it and looked down on thought work and life coaching before I got a life coach myself. But the basic specific structure that I have used and I use every day, right? Because every day you have bad thoughts and bad feelings, and every day has something hard in it. Nobody's life is perfect 100% of the time. And so when I now have practiced the skill that when I am overcome with guilt, shame, negative self-talk, criticism from people in my outside world, an argument with my spouse, he and I have arguments like every couple does, right? And so I pause, and for me, when I feel those negative feelings, I feel them in my upper chest. And so it's sort of a reminder for myself, like, ooh, I now can get curious about, ooh, I'm getting tightness or heaviness in my chest. What is that? And I've realized that thoughts are what are going to drive my feelings and my actions. So, an opposing counsel criticizing me is a circumstance that happens frequently, right? I'm in a contentious litigation. Okay, that's a neutral circumstance. And I could have a thought about it of, oh my gosh, I must be a horrible person, a horrible advocate. I must have messed up. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? And those thoughts lead to feelings of shame and that spiral. And that leads to actions that are not productive for myself or my client, right? Replaying things in your head. I should have said this. I should have done that. The shoulda, woulda, coulda. And that really leads to misery. And I lived in that for a while, like years of practice and the first couple of years of motherhood, if I'm really being honest. And so if that neutral circumstance happens now, and I feel that shame tightness in my chest or the embarrassment or negative feeling that manifests as tightness in my chest, I go, well, that's their opinion, and their opinion is none of my business, right? And that leads to a feeling of whatever, okay, on to the next. What's next on my to-do list, or what's next that I have to do in this deposition or trial or whatever it might be. And the feelings that come and the actions that come from that are confidence, humor. I can laugh at myself or the other person either out loud or in my head. Lightness, confidence, just and the motivation to just onto whatever I need to do next. And let me tell you, operating that way in work, in home life, just for my own sanity, is such a happier way to live. And so anyway, that's sort of my long way of saying how I've gotten to where I am now.
Yeah, I love that. And I have two things I just want to amplify from what you've said for people who are listening, because people might hear that and be like, oh, that sounds nice, but I can't do that. And one thing is, we love the woo here. We live for woo. Obviously we're life coaches and we live in the woo. But the second thing is, what you're saying essentially breaks down into a formula that pretty much anyone can apply, right? And you may do it in different ways than what you're explaining, but you identify the feeling in your body and where are you feeling it in your body. So you identify feelings as physical reactions, and everyone feels things physically. It's just becoming attuned to how you feel it. You're saying you feel it in your chest. Some people feel it in their stomach. When you're stressed and you get a stomach ache. Tova's raising her hand for anyone not on YouTube with us. I get it in my head. I get a headache. Other people get it in their hips, their legs. You can get it wherever. You just have to tune into your body and start noticing if I'm feeling stressed or anxious or sad or frustrated or whatever the feeling is. Where is it located in my body? And then there are more steps, right? It's not just, okay, I have that feeling. It's okay, I'm gonna stop now. I'm gonna breathe, and I'm going to then think about, what does this feeling mean? I don't have to be the feeling. I have to feel the feeling. And so those are two very different things. And that's what you're describing. I am not my feelings. I am feeling my feelings. And so when you can do things like this, as you're saying, Megan, it can completely change your life perspective, right? Because then you don't become controlled by your feelings, which you're allowing other people to dictate. You become able to feel your feelings, breathe through them, release them, and replace them with other feelings that are more amenable to whatever kind of day you want to have, which are lighter, happier feelings. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of practice and work and repetition, but it does change your entire life perspective, and it makes your life much more pleasant and a happier place to be. And it makes it easier for other people to relate to you, because if you're constantly reacting and being reactive to other people's responses to you or other things other people say to you, you're not really hearing them all the time, right? Because sometimes people say things to you and they actually don't mean them in the negative way you're hearing them. But if you're constantly on the lookout for the negativity, if you're assuming the negativity, then that's what you're going to hear. So I just wanted to amplify that because I think it's super important what you just said, and such a great tool. And I'm really glad you brought it up. And I think other people can benefit from that. I don't know that we've talked about it, Tova, or maybe we have, but in a different way.
Well, and we should, because and you know, I just had I get it in my stomach, and the other day I was like, my stomach was super tight, and I'm like, okay, am I like, am I getting sick, or like is something bothering me more than I think it's bothering me? Like, because that's the other thing, that I think your body, and there's obviously books about it, and The Body Keeps Scores, like the big book, but like the Bible when it comes to this kind of thing. But it, you know, sometimes, and I don't know if either of you experience, you have a headache, you have that tightness in your chest, and if you're busy and you don't stop, you're like, wait, I didn't know I was upset about something. Like, something's bothering me and I don't know what it is, and I need to figure that out. Like, sometimes it's so clear, right? And then sometimes it's not. I want to take a quick break, but I don't want to, but we need to take a quick break. But before I do, I don't know if either of you have watched The Good Wife. I mean, it hasn't been on for quite a while, but there was a judge there. And anytime anyone, and I'm sure this would drive you totally bonkers, Megan, but anytime anyone was in front of this judge for case management, conference, trial, whatever, they would say something and she would be like, in your opinion. And like everything they would say, because they were like stating things as they were facts, but they may or may not have been facts. And she would always be like, in your opinion. And I think that's sometimes I hear that I hear her voice in my head. And because I do think that for whatever reason, we give people weight, even strangers weight, and their opinion, we're like, oh, that's a fact. Oh, okay. And now though, just what were you saying, Megan, I kind of want to do that. You know, I have a preteen, I think is a tween, maybe it's just solidly tween. And he likes to tell me his thoughts about me often. And you know, my 8-year-old and 6-year-old they have a lot of opinions about me as a person and as a parent. And I think my new thing, and I'll let you know how it goes tomorrow, because I don't think it's going to go well, but I'm going to enjoy it, would be to be like, in your opinion.
Right.
Well, can I add something really quick? I know we got to take our break.
Whatever.
To Riley's point, and then you brought it home, Tova, that this is hard. I can't do this. Oh, it's so nice. Megan can, change her thoughts and her feelings. Yeah, that's never going to work for me. I also said that, and there are two things that resonated with me that got me to start to try. Right. And it is a practice that you get better at the more that you do, as in anything in life. But the first is the thought that, or the idea that if you give other people if you look to them to build you up, like if you need that, you're also giving them the power to tear you down. And how much better would it be if that was all within you? And I was like, yeah, I want to get to the point where I'm not looking for that outside validation, and also opening myself up to like being easily torn down by other people. And then the second part of it was becoming a mom. And I felt so unworthy as a person, and I didn't really realize how severe that was until I had a child, and had sort of shame spirals in that early experience. And when I thought about for him, and now for my 3 children, when they're adults, I don't want them to feel unworthy or ashamed of who they are. And so I have to find a way to teach them to have that worthiness be something that they create for themselves. But how was I going to do that for them if I didn't know how to do it for myself? And so I thought, okay, I don't know, this life coaching stuff seems very woo-woo, but I got to try something, right? And what I'm doing isn't working. And so maybe try that as a motivation to, all right, take that first step and give it a shot, because we all, and whether you have children or not, right? Like, we want to be a person that helps those around us, but how do we help them if we can't figure out how to do it for ourselves?
That is awesome. And that is a great time for a break. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Hey, Tova, you know what I love?
Coffee, definitions, uninterrupted reading time.
Okay, all of those things are true, but I also love maps.
As in Siri, take me to the beach.
Yeah, also, as in, who am I really and who do I want to be?
Yeah, I figured that's what you meant, but I also have the beach on my mind. So,
Well, we were talking about things we love, so that definitely makes sense. But the map I was thinking about is our Defining You course.
yes, we put together defining you as a way to map where you are and how you want to live your life.
So true. So many people struggle to find their purpose in a busy and noisy world.
That's why we made Defining You, our course meant to guide you to creating your own mission statement.
And there's good news. You can get it now on teachable.com. Find the link on our website at goboldlyinitiative.com/courses, or check out the link on our Instagram bio at Go Boldly Together.
We can't wait to see you there. Now, let's head back to the show. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Now, I do, as always, have a list of questions in front of me, and I'm not going to ask any of them because I wanted to talk to you about something.
I'm right over.
I'm taking a turn, but I really, we had invited you to join us in last season, and we just could not get our schedules aligned. But one reason last season was, and I'm jumping in now because I just don't want to forget about this, but last season was about this feeling of busyness, which there's a reason we talked about busyness and now we're talking about power, right? Like if we're all caught up into the busyness and we're feeling frantic, we're not really embracing our power. But one reason we really wanted to have you on, specific to that topic, but it works in this one as well, of course, is that you, at least from the outside, appear to have made a conscious decision to take a step back from things because you had other things come up. I'll let you tell what came up, but like other things come up and you were like, at least from the outside, it looked like you're like, I'm not going to run myself ragged here. I have to prioritize and figure out like what I am going to do. And, to me, that is just the ultimate self-care. And those are the kinds of decisions that we need to make in order to embrace our power. And so if you could share a little bit about like what I'm sort of being vague booking about, and also how you came to make that decision.
Well, first of all, thank you for those very kind words. That means a lot to me coming from you, Tova. And I didn't know how it appeared to everyone else. So, to clue everyone into what happened, in September of 2021, I disappeared from social media and abruptly stopped my podcast, stopped publishing episodes. And I have to say thank you to everybody who reached out to see if I was okay, because it was very abrupt and there was no explanation why I disappeared. And the explanation was I was newly pregnant and started having very severe first trimester symptoms. I was also in my first few months at a brand new job, which I absolutely love, but anybody knows a transition to a new job is hard. And I had just come off of a recent miscarriage. So I actually was miscarrying my baby while interviewing for this new job, which was a topic that we could talk about in another podcast episode, which the mental gymnastics it takes to be able to interview for a job while you're actively miscarrying is very difficult. But yeah, woof. And even talking about it, I can feel it in my body. That was just a really, really difficult season. And so I got the job and I thought, okay, it's not my time to be expecting. I'm going to throw myself into this job. And, by the grace of God, I got pregnant again. I was so excited. My husband and I were thrilled. But it's very hard to keep up the appearance as if nothing is wrong when you feel like garbage and exhaustion, nausea. I had a lot of trouble, and I thought, okay, I have a lot that I'm juggling. At that point, my boys were almost 3 and almost 5.
Ooh.
And I have a busy litigation career. I was transitioning to I've always done civil practice, but nursing home abuse and neglect was a new subset. It's very different than run of the mill med mal. And so I'm learning a whole new regulatory scheme, new area of medicine. I'm getting to know, new experts, jumping into cases that are already in active litigation, getting ready to file new cases. I mean, I was working my buns off. And the podcast, the live events, the speaking, and I actually had an opportunity to write a chapter in a book and become a published author. I thought I I physically couldn't do it, but I wasn't ready to tell the world why. And I just made a decision that I'm going to disappoint a lot of people, but I got to focus on my husband, my kids, and my job. And that is all I have the physical capacity to do, because I wanted to take care of my physical body and this pregnancy and, do everything I needed to do. But those three things, take care of my physical body, take care of my family, take care of my job, that was the maximum I could do. And so I abruptly stopped the podcast, and I had a lot of thought work around this, like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be wondering what's going on. I just dropped the ball on writing a chapter for this book. And I thought, oh my gosh, my professional reputation. I missed meetings. I missed speaking opportunities. I tried to remember and reach out and give advance warning to things that I could, some of which were very late, and I angered some people. But I thought, I have to disappoint other people to be able to take care of the business and the family and the things, that I needed to for my health. And so it ended up being much longer. I thought I would okay, let's get through this first trimester and then I'll get back. And I actually learned some really important lessons about myself and what makes me happy when I paused a lot of the extra things that I thought were what was making me happy. And so I ended up taking a really extended hiatus that took over a year on some of these outside passion projects. And it's scary to do, because of that unknown of, will people accept me back? Will I get those speaking opportunities? Will I ever get to publish a book? Will people even tune back into the podcast? Something that I had worked really hard to build. And I've just accepted the fact that maybe it will take an on-ramp process again to build back up to where I was. And that's okay. Because the reasons why I did what I did were the most loving thing I could have done for myself, and thereby my family, who, these little people and my husband are the most important people in my life. And so I've really leaned into the mantra of successful people are happy. And that is when I have those negative thoughts and I'm trying to do those, rework my thoughts to, send my feelings and my actions in a healthy direction. I really come back to my mantra that successful people are happy. And what success looks like for me is not what success looks like for anyone else. And I don't care what success looks like for anyone else or any judgment I get. And so actually having me on this season when I'm back to speaking and podcasting makes more sense, because I have never felt more powerful than I do now.
Well, oh, do you want to?
Well, I just wanted to, I don't have another question quite yet, but I'm going to highlight for everyone again who might have heard you say all of that and been like, okay, well, that's great for you, but I don't think I can do that, because I feel like people say these things a lot, having been that person who might have said those things in the past. And you basically just described what Tova and I talked about during the first 2 episodes of this season, and that is why it is so important to know who you are, know what's important to you, figure out what your priorities are, and set boundaries. And
Yes.
That's exactly what you've done. And kudos to you, because that's amazing. It's fantastic. And you're thriving from it. And I'm sure there have been struggles and you've had stress and anxiety and all of the things that come along with it. I'm not suggesting it's easy for anyone listening. It's not easy. But the fact that you've done that and you've been able to follow your path and your purpose and your inner voice in order to be able to kind of land in the place that makes you feel like you're doing what's right for you and not worrying about, well, maybe worrying, but not listening to all the outside noise, right? And not allowing that to distract you from what is the most important to you on any given day is fantastic, and it's super hard. And so for anyone listening and going, well, I don't know, it just takes the first step. You know, you didn't do it all at once. You did step by step. You built into this place, and so anyone can do that. Anyone can embrace their power by building those boundaries, by figuring out who they are, by understanding where their priorities are and what's the most important thing to them. It doesn't, you know, you don't have to have kids to figure that out. You don't have to have pets. You don't have to have a career in the law. I know we have a lot of lawyers on the show. We are lawyers. You could be doing anything with your life. You could be a teacher. You could be a gymnast. I don't know. It doesn't matter what you are as a career. What matters is who you are and how you are listening to who you are on the inside. And so I feel like it's really important. You're giving people some really great advice, and I want to make sure they're hearing it and understanding that it's taking these things that we're talking about and putting them into practice. So it's happening in real time, people. It's happening.
Well, and I want to emphasize, and I do have I will get to a question.
Yeah.
But I do want to emphasize what you were both saying, which is there's a reason, much to my chagrin, that we talk about boundaries so much. And
Yes.
embracing our power doesn't mean that we say yes to everything. And it's funny because I just watched a clip from Seth Meyers, Late Night with Seth Meyers, and Kamala Harris was on it. And she was talking about some little girl she was talking to, and she said, you know, you can be anything you want to be. And the little girl looked her right in the face and was like, I'm going to be everything. And I feel like, you know, we look at like Lizzo, and I mean, if there's anyone who is everything, right? But she's not everything at the same time.
Right.
And she prioritizes. And also she has like boatloads of people helping her. But even then, even with all the support in the world, she has to prioritize. And that means saying no. And it means saying no to things that we want to do. And those no's are something that I'm not quite good at doing.
Yeah, they're hard.
So hard.
I just said no to a bunch of things that I love doing and that I had worked my buns off to be able to get the opportunity to do. And I blanket said no to everything.
Yes.
And it was hard.
It's really hard.
Really hard.
And I think the thing that you said in the beginning of that particular story that maybe people didn't pick up on, or hopefully they did, I don't know, is you focused on your self-worth at some point. And so that takes us in the Wayback Machine of our podcast, because your self-worth is sort of the fundamental building block of all of this, right? Like if you're not able to recognize that you are innately worthy and that your personhood is of value, and so whatever it is that you want to do with your personhood is worthwhile and valuable, then it's impossible to do the rest of the things, right? Like you're always going to put someone else first. You're always going to choose someone else's interests over your own, even your children's. And that is where, as moms, we get so hung up because it's very hard not to put your kids before yourself. But and I don't mean this in the like put your oxygen mask on first kind of way. I mean this in the like, you have to come first. You'll die.
It's not selfish. It's necessary. It's a necessary.
So, right,
that taking care of yourself, and not self-care like pedicures and massages, like taking care of yourself first is necessary to be a good parent. And we all strive to be good parents, you know? So I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
So obviously when you were making this decision and you were like sick and awful, and it was a big decision, and it required a lot of small decisions afterwards of no. But how do you make sure on a daily basis? See, I got to a question. We're getting to a question.
Yeah.
I love it.
How do you make sure, like, on a daily basis, when it's not necessarily a conversation that you're going to sit down with your managing partner and talk about, or your husband even and talk about? These are just things come at you fast. Like, so how do you make sure that the decisions and choices you're making are coming from that place of self-worth, that place of power, versus either a knee-jerk reaction of like, oh yeah, I need to do that, I owe that person. Maybe there's a trauma response that, you know, we probably won't even get into on this episode, maybe for another episode sometime. But like, how do you make sure that your decisions come from that core place of self-worth and power versus anything else?
Three things come to mind. So, practicing saying no makes saying no easier. So, I have gotten better at saying no to things. And whenever I say yes to an opportunity, I tell myself, okay, saying yes means saying no to something else. And so, getting really clear on what I'm going to say yes to and what I'm going to say no to. So, that takes a bit of reflection and boundary setting and, journaling, maybe whatever works for you to sort of get clear on what is I have a finite amount of time every day, every week, every month. What time am I going to give to X passion project, or am I going to give, to give back to other people? But doing all of those things means I say no to something I need to do for work. I say no to something I need to do for my families. I say no to doing something for myself and my self-care. Is it worth giving up those things? So, saying yes means saying no. So getting really clear on what you want to say yes to, and practicing saying no when it doesn't align with those things will make saying no easier. Also, really being mindful with your calendar. And that is a work in progress for me. And you can ask my paralegal. But I have started time blocking, please do not schedule anything for me at these times of the week. And putting on my calendar, 2 or 3 hour block to take care of certain things in my professional life, and doing the same for my personal life. So I think, having a calendar and using it can actually give you more time freedom, and that's something I'm learning, and I'm seeing some good results from that. And I also think the last thing, and probably the most important thing, is having a gratitude practice. So I again laughed at this, thought it was the silliest thing I'd ever heard. Yeah, okay, I'm going to wake up every day and say 3 things I'm grateful for, and that's going to suddenly transform my life. BS. Okay. It's real, people. It's real. Okay. And I have spent a long time doing it, and it doesn't happen immediately. It's not a fast food drive through, you get your results right away. It's a practice, like the practice of law, the practice of parenthood. You learn, and that muscle memory ends up making a difference. And so before, my alarm goes off, before I open social media, and I am guilty of opening social media very early in my morning routine. I know that's probably not good, but it is what it is. But I pause and I think about 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I say a prayer for, the love and protection of my children. Like, it's, God, please look out for my children today. And that's not everybody is, has a faith practice, but there is a way, I think, to express some gratitude for what you do have, and set an intention of, what you look forward to and hope for your day. My goodness, the level of contentment that I feel with less, is, I think once you can try to get to a place of contentment, what you can build in your life really makes a difference. And so, I was the young attorney who was spending too much money on like clothes and experiences and travel, because I was always searching for something to make me happy, that was outside of me. And what I've learned is that a gratitude practice helps bring contentment within, that then allows me to do more with my time, with my energy, with my focus. And it ends up, when I took that year of doing less, I experienced a level of happiness that I had not yet experienced in my life. And so if anyone can take a little nugget of that, and happiness doesn't mean every day is a good day. There are bad days, there are sad days, there are mad days, I yell at my husband sometimes, and something I'm working on, right? Like, I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect mom. I miss things at, preschool, and, I can't be there because I have a busy career, but I have learned to be happy with what I have and the time that I can spend. And I think that's something we can all try. And you might be able to find some more contentment in your lives too.
I will add to what you're saying about the gratitude practice. I heard a quote. I was at the Pennsylvania Women's Conference, or conference for men, last week, and someone said something, and it keeps hanging around my head. which is that you can't be grateful and anxious at the same time. Now, you can be a grateful, anxiety-ridden person, but at the exact moment, you cannot be both. Like, there's not space for both in your mind and in your heart. So when you are practicing gratitude, if that's how you're starting the day, then you're not starting it with anxiety. And if you are someone, and I think anxiety looks a little different for everybody, and the word might not be anxiety for you, it might be stress or nervousness or fear for what comes that day. Wherever it is, there's not space for both, right? And
I love that, Toba. I love that.
For me, that was like, oh, and then it was followed by a quote, and I of course wrote down the name of the person. I don't Mondaine. I don't know. He's French, but it was said there were many horrible things in my life, but most of them never happened. And that sort of like layered on top. And I think that now we don't need to pivot to discussion of anxiety, but I think that really that concept of gratitude as your sort of base layer of your day does make a really big difference. With that being said, I think we need to take one more quick break.
Yeah, and then do some rapid response questions, I think.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, we'll be right back, everyone. In case you didn't already know, we love talking.
True story. More than simply talking, we love researching, prepping, and bringing this podcast to life.
We launched We Go Boldly with the goal of reaching people dealing with the kinds of questions and concerns that we also face.
Things like how to hear my inner voice, how to make sure my habits are worth it and stick, how do I feel my feelings and still manage to function.
After years of personal work and lots of trial and error, we realized we have a lot to share on these topics.
Now we've been broadcasting for over a year, and we are proud of our podcast.
And to no one's surprise, we still have a lot to say and talk about.
We sure do. We need your help to keep going. Every episode takes time and money to create, and we would love your support.
So, if you like what we are doing, please support us by joining our Patreon community and becoming a monthly subscriber.
Join our Patreon community today at patreon.com/wegoboldly. We are so grateful to all of our supporters. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back. And we're going to wrap it up with some rapid response questions. Aren't I clever? Sorry, just giving myself some pats on the back today.
I like it.
I love it.
I need it. So these are our quick response questions. I am not allowed to ask follow-ups.
Ooh,
I say this every time because it annoys me. Toba won't let me follow up because they're supposed to be quick. So I just eat up time here complaining about how I'm not allowed to follow up on them.
It's true.
We'll have to do a Zoom
Yeah,
coffee after, and then you can ask your follow-up.
Yes, 100%.
I will have follow-up questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, so there's 5 questions. You just answer them in, brief format, something like that.
I know, I'm a lawyer. I talk too much. I'll keep it brief.
Well, that's how these episodes get so long. There's too many lawyers involved. All right, first question. What is on your nightstand?
Ooh, a lamp, framed pictures of my kids, an extra diaper and wipe. I have a 5-month-old and there's like diapers and wipes everywhere. And a book that I have been meaning to read for over a year now.
Excellent. Okay. Number 2. Who is at the top of your playlist right now?
Ooh, I am not a music person, so I don't have a playlist.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to ask.
I know. That usually shocks people.
It does. Okay. Number 3. How do you relax?
Ooh, 2 different ways. Yoga breathing practice or running.
Okay. It's very healthy. Number 4. Favorite beverage.
Oh, coffee.
I feel that. Okay, this is our hard one. Number 5. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Oh, that is a good one. Other people's opinions of you are none of your business.
Mm-hmm. I like that one. My mom always used to say, nobody's thinking about you as much as you think they are, which was like a little harsh, I'm going to be honest.
It's true.
But also super accurate.
It is.
It is a hard life lesson to learn and a super important one.
I know.
Nobody cares.
Leave it to moms. Thank you so much for being on the show with us. I feel like I could have talked to you for another 45 minutes.
I could have talked to the both of you. This was so much fun. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So can you share with our listeners where they can find you, find your podcast, anything you would like to direct them to? We'll obviously share it all in our show notes and on our social and all that, but if you wouldn't mind letting them know.
Thank you. It's easy. Mom, Life, and Law across all the platforms. So at Mom, Life, and Law on Instagram, Facebook. There's also a LinkedIn page. My name, Megan L. Whiteside on LinkedIn, and momlifeandlaw.com. If you just go to the website, you'll find your way to all of the other platforms. But yeah, please engage. It's me behind the social media. It's not a company. I'm a solopreneur in that sense.
Yep.
And I actually do love getting messages, responding to them, connecting. I'm a people person. And so, that is in real, in person and also online. I love engaging. So if there's a way I can support you, please message me. It's really me.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you again. It was so fun talking to you. Thank you for sharing such great advice with everyone and for confirming all the things we've been saying for people.
You're welcome.
We appreciate that. Listen, people.
And I will tell you that was not planned.
I know. Right? I was like, okay, so we do know what we're talking about, everybody. We give good advice.
That's right.
No, I really appreciate it. It was great. We loved having you on. We will be back next week with more on embracing your power. So until then, everyone, please set some boundaries. Get out there, figure some things out. Who are you? Let us know. Reach out to us on social media. We're always here. We love also talking to you guys. It is just us. So we're the ones responding to you. I never thought about that before, but it is actually us. So enjoy the week, and we will be back next week with a new episode. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.